discussion on Bora Ring by Judith Wright. Let us get to know the poet a little better. Judith Wright was a well-distinguished poet in Australian society. She tried to bring the Aboriginal rituals and way of life back to life through her poetry. We will learn more about Aboriginal people and their rituals in the later slides. Judith Wright was also an environmentalist and an active campaigner for Aboriginal land rights. Coming to the poem Bora Ring. Who is the poem talking about? The poem is talking about the Aboriginal people of Australia. Who are these Aboriginal people? Well, the Aboriginal people of Australia are the original inhabitants of Australia, and they are ethnically and culturally distinct from the other indigenous people of Australia, the Torres Strait Islanders. There occurred a significant event in the lives of the Aboriginal people of Australia, and that is the English colonization. In 1788, England sent a crew to Australia, then known as the New South Wales, and they began building prisons in the land of Australia. This marked the beginning of the British colonization of the Aboriginal population. The impact of English colonization on the Aboriginal Australians was horrific. As with the American Indians, the English forced the Aboriginal people off their land. Many were beaten, killed. Others contracted diseases that were foreign to them. Aboriginal Australians could no longer roam the land where they found their food, and many tribes died out completely. When the English arrived in 1788, the Aboriginal population was in the hundreds of thousands and possibly into the millions. With the deaths that followed the arrival of the English, the numbers of the Aboriginal people lessened drastically. Over the next centuries, things got worse. Besides losing hundreds of thousands of lives, the Aboriginal people lost much of their native culture. They could no longer tell their stories and traditions, and in some cases, there was no one to hear them. History was lost. At the time of colonization, Aboriginal people of Australia spoke an estimated 250 to 300 different languages. More than half of these have disappeared altogether from the face of Earth. Coming to the title of the poem, Bora Ring. What are these Bora rings? Bora rings are these unique cultural sites. They are evidence of the ceremonial and religious life of the Aboriginal people. They are found mainly in southeastern Australia. How do these Bora rings look? As evident from the picture below, They are circular structures of stones or foot-hardened earth surrounded by raised embankments. What were these Bora rings used for? Well, young boys of Aboriginal race went through an initiation ceremony called a Bora on the rings, in which they were introduced to the traditional knowledge of the Aboriginal men. When the Bora ceremonies involved many groups, they were also an opportunity for trade and other social activities. Major ceremonies often attracted hundreds or possibly thousands of people. Thank you for watching. We are going to continue our discussion on